Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are listening from. Thank you all for being here today. We're doing another white wall talk. As my phone just goes off, let me turn that off. No more distractions. Alright, we're doing another white wall talk. These have been doing better than I thought they would, so we're going to do another one. We did one on baiting in Michigan. We did some 5 things that you can improve your hunting this fall. Today we're going to talk about crossbows. So a bunch of people have asked me about it. It's been recommended for me to talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it today, what I think about the crossbow situation. Is it archery, is it not? We'll get into that. The first thing I'm going to say is I do have family members that use crossbows. I do have a friend or two that uses a crossbow. So for me, I'm not here to bash on crossbows. I'm just going to start with that. If it's legal in your state and you can use it, good for you. I'm not here to bash on people for using a crossbow. I think it's more of an issue when it comes to regulations within states. I think what crossbows do is they just add to, I wouldn't say how would I explain this? I don't think crossbows are the problem. I think they get compounded and blamed for a lot when states mismanage the resource, and it's just easy for hunters to fight about, well, you use a crossbow, I use a compound. I think that's when it really gets bad and out of hand for no reason. I'm very familiar with the state of Pennsylvania. Grew up there, lived there for the first 24 years of my life, hunted there the whole time. Growing up, crossbows were legal from the time I started hunting in 2012. You could use a crossbow. And the state of Pennsylvania's hunting has gotten better over time. So in the last 20 years, not many states can say that, and it is legal to use a crossbow in Pennsylvania. I think when crossbows really become a problem is when you add other technologies, and the technologies are more the problem, not the means of killing. The problems are, I think, in some of these states that have baiting, and I think cell cameras are legal everywhere, but I think those two things with any weapon really give an advantage that is something that we've never seen before. So corn piles and cell cameras, I think, really are a bigger problem to the way we hunt than crossbows. I think crossbows, yeah, you can sit in a box blind over a corn pile at 25 yards. With a crossbow or a compound today, I think you're just as deadly. I don't think it's if he would have shot it with a regular bow, he wouldn't have killed it. I think a lot of times, I don't think there's many guys, I know there's some, I don't think there's many guys shooting 60 plus with a crossbow, just like there's not many guys that are shooting 60 plus with a compound. I think it's just the combination of a lot of these regulations, and then somebody's got to be to blame, and I think the crossbow takes a lot of blame for that. Now, that being said, I think crossbows are great for kids, for people over 55, or people in their older age that want to just get out there. I think when you have a 28-year-old, 30-year-old, somebody like me that works out, is in decent shape, and they're shooting a crossbow, it's come on, man. But I don't think there's no reason to fight over it. Compound bows are a lot different than recurve bows or traditional bows, which they used to shoot back in the day. When my dad started archery hunting, he was a stick and string, just a recurve bow. So when we look at the evolution of bow hunting, to say that it's shooting a compound and shooting a recurve and the same thing, it's not true at all. I would love, and I'd be the first one to do it, if there would be a primitive archery season. If they gave that to us in the middle of the rut, I think it'd be great. But states aren't going to do that. They want to give opportunities. Like I said, I don't think it's the crossbow's fault. If it's legal where you are, go ahead, use a crossbow. You're not going to hear me complain about it. I think it's more on the states. And I think the one thing states aren't looking at, a statistic that they need to start looking at, is all they look at is number of licenses sold and the revenue they made off of that. Obviously, money talks. But the one thing they're not looking at is the number of days hunters are in the field. In the 80s, when my dad started hunting, everybody hunted 4 or 5 days. 90% of those guys hunted the first 2 days of gun season maybe one Saturday in doe season in Pennsylvania. There might have been over 1 million hunters, but they only hunted 5 days. Now we have somewhere in the range of 800,000 hunters in the state of Pennsylvania, and I don't know how many, we'll just say half of those are archery hunting, crossbow, bow, recurve, whatever they're using, but their days in the field are more like 10, 15, 20 days because they're just hunting more. So I think the one thing we definitely have to look at is what do crossbows do as far as adding days to the hunting season, as far as the number of days people are in the field. I don't think it's a stat that people are looking at. And I think the states are looking at, and I think it's a very important deal that we're looking at the number of days that hunters are actually hunting now compared to the 80s. Because yes, they talk about this massive peak, and I don't want to get into a different conversation, but everybody's like, well, we need more hunters, and it's like, I was just door knocking in Ohio 2 weekends ago, and I couldn't find a piece of permission to get access on. And it's like, in the 80s, you could knock on any door. So something is definitely going on. Like I said, in the state of Ohio, bait piles and cell cameras, I think those are way more on the chopping block, or like would be a much lower fruit than crossbows. Like I don't see the reason to just say, oh, crossbows are the only problem. I don't think they are a problem. I think crossbows have a place. I would love to see some states do like a primitive archery season, whether it is compound, whether it is recurve. I would be so on board with that. Like if you said tomorrow, hey, there's going to be a state that from middle of October all the way through November, all you can use is a recurve, I'd get rid of my compound and use a recurve. I like shooting my compound. I've never shot a recurve since I was like a kid. So I haven't shot one in a while, but like if you gave me that option, 100%. I think some of the bow guys don't talk about, hey, how much compound bows have changed in the last 50 years. I mean, or just bow hunting in general has changed in the last 50 years. I don't think that crossbow hunting, this might get taken the wrong way, I don't think it's really archery hunting, because you're not pulling anything, you're just pulling a trigger. But, to say that bow hunting, the compound I use today is anything that, compared to the 80s when my dad started archery hunting, those two things are not the same either. So there has been an evolution in archery hunting in general, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that hasn't happened. It really has. I mean, you can shoot decently accurate if you're a good shot with a compound bow at 80, 90 yards. Now again, you're not going to shoot a deer at that distance, but it's just the fact that you can do it, and the equipment has just gotten so much better in the last 40 years. So bringing that back together, I think that when we look at it, it's not always the crossbow's fault. I think that they take a lot of heat. I would differentiate and say, like, hey, I don't want to say it's not archery hunting, but there is, in my opinion, a difference between a crossbow and a bow. And to say they're both archery hunting, to me, is up for debate. But I think that they get a lot of heat when it's more on the states and the regulations. And like I said, if it's legal, man, do what you got to do. But I think a lot of it we can take a lot of that out by getting rid of corn piles, I don't think we're ever going to get rid of cell cameras, the cat's out of the bag, but corn piles, if you're in a state like Illinois or Kansas, Kansas already has some non-resident limitations, but a state like Illinois, Wisconsin, limit your non-resident, stuff like that. I think move your gun seasons. I think there's bigger fish to fry than crossbows and compounds. I think if some of these states changed a couple things, there would be a little bit more relief, and we might not have to change the crossbow thing. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think it's a huge deal, because like I said, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I think in the last 20 years, Pennsylvania hunting has gotten better, and we have crossbows. Now that being said, we have a late gun season. Our gun season is not until after Thanksgiving. We don't get a ton of non-residents to come hunt here, or hunt there. I don't live there anymore. But I look at that, And I think there's bigger fish to fry than, got to get rid of crossbows, got to get rid of crossbows. I want to see people be able to hunt more too. But I do think there is somewhat of an access problem with crossbows, but I think there's things that we could limit before we have to get to the point of getting rid of crossbows. So I know that might have been a long-winded answer to a very short question, but that's my true thoughts on it. I love that more people get to go out and hunt. I like to see that, but I don't think states are looking at the right statistics, and I think in a lot of these states, there's bigger fish to fry than crossbows versus compounds. Like I said, the biggest thing to me, get that gun season out of the rut and limit your non-residents if you're in a state that has a lot of non-residents, and get rid of corn piles. My bigger gripe is with corn piles in certain states and number of non-residents and the gun seasons. Those three things, I think, before you even go talking about getting rid of crossbows, you need to address those three things, and those three things need to be talked about before we get into the debate of crossbows and compounds. So, thank you guys for listening. If you're at this point, I know there might have been some stutters and this, that, and the other thing, but I appreciate you guys. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.